Shein used to be the biggest fast fashion retailer in the US. It is until Temu stepped into the picture. Now the two of them are duking it out like cocks in a cockfight. In the courts, that is. Welcome to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. Have you ever wondered what Chinese companies do with all the cheap stuff they can't sell?
Free! The price of our French fries! Stop! Fake!
Those were commercials for Temu, the latest and not so greatest Chinese fast fashion company to cater to the US. And they know one way to handle extra inventory.
Destroy them all!
They claim in these commercials that the reason they have so much extra inventory is that their prices are so low, people think it can't be real.
We're giving Switches away for $7 during Temu's digital festival event, but no one's grabbing them.
The prices are too low. No one believes it.
But it's an official, genuine, real Nintendo Switch. Look!
And they're not kidding about the low prices.
Our popular head-mounted Bluetooth headphones cost only $1.84. Free delivery to your doorstep in the US.
You can get these Ace-Fast earbuds for only $3.84.
$4.22.
Wow, look at those great deals. I can't believe they're real either. And guess what? They're probably not.
So it says this is a lightning deal, 9% claimed, and it's taking down now. Except you click on this and there is no lightning deal.
What happens is that the goalposts keep moving forward and you just need one more referral and just one more referral. And you keep doing that over and over and inviting so many people that at some point you're gonna need to refer like 30 people just to get whatever the heck you want for free. And the craziest thing about all this is that you only have 24 hours to do this.
Now, plenty of influencer types will tell you otherwise. The deals are real, and that if you just use their code, you're gonna get some crazy good deals on top of Temu's already crazy low prices. That's because Temu has spent a lot of money paying influencers to advertise for it.
Personally, I've been offered 4 figures to publish a single video about Temu. I've also been offered hundreds of dollars just to post a short TikTok. It's pretty nuts.
When Temu opened shop in September, it reportedly had an advertising budget of $140 million just for that month. It spent about $14 million on a 1-minute Super Bowl commercial, which apparently it can afford, because this year it plans to spend $1.4 billion on advertising campaigns. Now, the reason such a new company can afford to spend so big and be losing millions of dollars to send you cheap socks and $4 running shoes is because it's owned by PDD Holdings, a Chinese e-commerce giant. PDD Holdings is also the parent company of Chinese e-commerce platform Pinduoduo, which has made a lot of money selling cheap things to Chinese consumers. PDD Holdings was headquartered in Shanghai, but earlier this year, it told the SEC it registered in the Cayman Islands and that its principal offices are now in Dublin, Ireland. Although according to China Daily, it later denied that, claiming its headquarters will always be in Shanghai, China and will not change. I guess maybe it depends on who's asking, the SEC or a Chinese newspaper. There's a reason Temu might play fast and loose with the truth. Foreign governments, like say the US government, tend to distrust businesses based in China, and with good reason. With the Chinese Communist Party in charge, there's no meaningful separation between public and private business in China. All companies are completely under the thumb of the Communist Party. Temu popping up in the US last September may have been a good business decision, but it was also being encouraged by the Chinese government. China's retail sales had been flatlining or falling for a while. I mean, they fell right after the pandemic hit and everything shut down, then spiked when China declared victory over COVID the first time and opened all the factories. But then it's mostly been downhill, even after China declared victory over COVID for a second time. Looking at foreign markets seemed to make sense, especially because it was a time of high inflation in the US, which meant a lot of people were looking for a bargain. But this just wasn't a good financial decision, it was also a good political decision. 2 years ago, China's State Council put out guidelines on accelerating the development of new models of foreign trade. Among other things, the guidance encouraged Chinese companies to build their own independent e-commerce websites. Very important if you want to get around the chokehold of Western platforms like Walmart, eBay, and Amazon. It seems like there's been some unease among Chinese policymakers about relying on the West for anything, which makes sense if China plans to invade Taiwan and is preparing itself for economic war, i.e. sanctions. But it also just makes sense for China generally. A few years ago, Amazon removed Chinese sellers en masse for violating its rules on paying for reviews. According to one researcher at China's Ministry of Commerce, Chinese sellers are also removing themselves from Amazon because, among other things, it no longer provides sellers what he called core consumer data, things like buyer names, addresses, and other details, making it very difficult for companies to analyze consumer preferences. This consumer data is what Temu and other Chinese e-commerce sites thrive on. I'll tell you more after this short commercial break. Welcome back. As domestic retail demand in China slows down, the Chinese Communist Party has been encouraging Chinese businesses to expand overseas. A number of Chinese fast fashion retailers have popped up in the West. But the two most dominant ones are Temu and Shein. Shein, although technically based in Singapore, is a Chinese company. It started up in 2012 and has been leading the charge of what's now referred to as ultra-fast fashion. Compared to brick-and-mortar retailers like Zara, Forever 21, and H&M, which churn out a few thousand styles per year, ultra-fast fashion companies like Shein and Temu add thousands of new products a day. The other feature of ultra-fast fashion is that it's ridiculously cheap.
$4.22.
We've talked about how they're able to do all that in previous videos, which I'll leave links below to. But basically, it's because they're wildly unethical. They skirt U.S. import duties, violate labor laws, ignore IP protection, take advantage of postage subsidies, and bully their suppliers into selling their goods at almost a loss. And let's not forget about the ties to slave labor. They also harvest tons of user data to tailor their advertising and to predict trends. Ultra-fast fashion firms such as Temu and Shein look to online trends and influencers for style inspiration, rather than imitating trends set on runways and by traditional fashion houses as fast fashion retailers do. Once they see a trend, they feed that data to their suppliers, which makes new products in small batches to test the demand. Temu says it'll order as few as 100 units of a product before bringing it to market. For brick-and-mortar retailers, they usually need to order at least 5 times that much. Both Shein and Temu claim this helps them cut down on time, money, and waste because they're not left with extra inventory. But really, don't tell me this stuff isn't going to end up in a landfill in a few years. Before Temu came along, Shein pretty much dominated the ultra-fast fashion industry in the West. In the first half of 2022, it was the most downloaded fashion and beauty app across the US. But because of Temu's aggressive marketing, promise of big promotional deals, and willingness to take a loss to beat out the competition, its growth has been exponential. In less than a year, it became the most downloaded app in the US. And after conquering America, it expanded to places like Europe, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. It now shares similar turf as Shein, which, as I mentioned before, had a 10-year head start but grew at a much slower pace. As you can imagine, this has set them on something of a collision course, because while Shein was traditionally more fashion-focused, and Temu was more of an everything store like Walmart, they've now both expanded into each other's spaces, and now that collision course has turned into a full-blown fight in the courts. I'll tell you about it after this final commercial break. Welcome back. Shein and Temu are each other's biggest rivals, and as you can imagine, they're pretty cutthroat with each other. In March, Shein sued Temu in Illinois, accusing Temu of impersonating it and ripping off its images. It claimed that Temu has used the Shein trademarks and the goodwill associated with that brand to unlawfully promote Temu's products and services and to trick consumers into downloading Temu's mobile app. Shein also claimed Temu told social media influencers to say Shein is not the only cheap option for clothing, check Temu.com out, cheaper and way better quality. Which might sound good at first, but is being better quality than Shein really a selling point? That's kind of like Taco Bell saying its meat is better than dog food. Yes, it may be better, but that's a pretty low bar. While that case is working its way through the courts, Temu has now brought a case against Shein, alleging antitrust violations. Temu claims that Shein is preventing suppliers in China from working with Temu, and only Temu. It said in its lawsuit that Shein is threatening manufacturers that they will face liability if they sell on Temu, and is forcing manufacturers to sign loyalty oaths to prevent them from working with Temu in the first place. If they do, Temu says Shein has threatened to fine them. Both Temu and Shein have their warehouses in Guangzhou, China, and because of their tight turnaround times, there aren't that many suppliers they can work with. Temu estimates that the approximately 8,000 manufacturers that supply Shein represent 70 to 80% of the total number of merchants capable of supplying ultra-fast fashion. And it claims it doesn't have a lot of other options. Temu says nearly all its product offerings in the United States come from a network of manufacturers located in China, which means the claim on its website that Temu works with millions of sellers, manufacturers, and brands around the world is probably a lie. Now, whether either of these lawsuits will pack a punch remains to be seen. But if the justice system doesn't resolve Shein and Temu's differences, they can always duke it out in the good old-fashioned way, in a cage fight. Hey, if it's good enough for Zuck and Musk, it's good enough for anyone. And China Uncensored would not exist without the support from viewers like you. Most of our budget comes from fan support on our exclusive social media site on Locals. That's ChinaUncensored.locals.com. For a small monthly contribution, you'll get a bunch of cool perks, including the chance to have me answer your questions on the show. And today's question comes from Tea Drinker. Chris, since you used to be in Catholic school, what did the commandment to love one's enemies mean to you then versus now? Ooh, now that's a question to chew on. In case any of you watching didn't know, I spent 7 years in Catholic school, followed by 4 years in a Lutheran university. I was quite the rebel. But yes, Jesus preached you should love your enemies. How does that work with communists who are trying to kill you and destroy civilization? And this ties into a bigger question. What society has successfully been able to resist communist infiltration and influence? Even the church has been infiltrated by Marxist ideology. It's called liberation theology. So, can loving your enemies stop them, especially when your enemies are doing actual evil in the world? Well, in the case of early Christianity, they loved their enemies even as they were being horribly tortured and martyred for like 300 years. And then Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. At the end of the day, it's not about all these complex geopolitical sea changes. It's just how you live your life and how you treat others. And communists preach constant struggle and fighting with everyone. Now, they all seem pretty miserable. So maybe we'd all do better to do the exact opposite and have a little more love in our lives. Thanks for your question and your support, Tea Drinker. Thank you for watching. Remember, check out our exclusive social media site, ChinaUncensored.locals.com. Link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.